The first half of the episode is a recap from L about the events. The second half shows the Kira task force discussing what to do now that L is dead. They see in the newspaper that Watari was actually a rich inventor named Quill Schwammy who founded orphanages. They suggest having Light as the new L. Light decides to rent an apartment and asks Misa to move in with him. Later, on a rooftop overlooking the city, Light reassures Ryuk that his entertainment is not over as he can now begin to create his new world. 5 years pass, and Light kills all those connected to the Yotsuba case, and after graduating college, officially joins the task force as the new L. Kira has become a global force that some governments are now accepting in place of judicial law. Meanwhile, L's computer monitor has automatically sent a timed message to a place called Whammy's house, with the simple statement, L is dead. The message of L's death sent to Whammy's house is received by two boys called Mello and Near. Mello asks the senior official which of them L chose to succeed him. L had not chosen yet, however, and Mello refuses to work together with Near, whom he sees as a competitor, and decides to leave Whammy's house for good. Over the next 5 years, Near assembles an American investigative team called the Special Provision for Kira, or SPK. Back in Japan, post-time skip, Light's family and the task force are having tea at the Yagami household when they receive an alert that the head of the NPA has been kidnapped. The kidnappers are demanding the Death Note as ransom. Light is unnerved that the kidnappers know about the Death Note. Mello is shown to be the mastermind behind the kidnapping, having joined the mafia in the USA. The information the director gives under interrogation allows Mello to figure out that there are 2 Death Notes, both connected to the Japanese police. Trying to prevent the loss of a Death Note to an enemy, Light kills the NPA director, but Mello then has Sayu, Light's sister, kidnapped instead. Knowing that Sayu has been taken to America, Light contacts the American government as L. The SBK are ones who receive the call. Near introduces himself and lets Light know that they are aware that the true L is dead. The task force travels to the United States, planning to go through with the exchange of the Death Note for Sayu. As Soichiro arrives at the airport, he is intercepted by one of the kidnappers, who directs him to board a different flight from the one planned. Aizawa reports this to Light, who tells him to allow this. The plane's pilot is in league with the kidnappers and veers off his route, telling air traffic control that he is making a brief detour to drop off a passenger. The plane lands in the desert, and Soichiro is let off. Mello contacts him, and an underground base is revealed. Soichiro enters and finds Sayu being held by one of the kidnappers. Light is starting to panic that things are getting out of control and considers killing Sayu, but concludes that he couldn't blame her death on Kira. The kidnapper demands a test of the Death Note, using it to kill a fellow mafia member who had sold drugs behind their back. He then takes the Death Note and releases Sayu. Light contacts Near and orders him to track the kidnapper as he escapes via helicopter. Near is annoyed, but attempts to do so. However, the Death Note is actually loaded onto a missile that cannot be tracked. Rod Ross blows up the helicopter, killing the pilot for his past failures. Mello then has the Death Note used to kill most of the SBK, leaving Near and a few others alive. Near contacts Light and reprimands him for handing over the notebook. He tells him that he suspects Mello is behind the kidnapping and agrees to share information with the task force. Unresponsive Sayu Yagami in a wheelchair being pushed by her mother. Soichiro looks on sadly and is depressed by what has happened to his family and is giving the Death Note to Mello's gang. The Shinigami that went to retrieve his Death Note, named Saito, confronts Ryuk about his missing Death Note. Ryuk instructs Saito to find it himself, as he has no idea where the Death Note is. Meanwhile, Matsuda and Aizawa return from a trip to England to tell Light the orphanage where Mello came from was actually a facility that brought together gifted children and trained them to become L's successor. They also learned the most gifted was Near, assumed to be the N of the SBK. They also bring sketches of what Mello and Near looked like as children. Afterward, Light receives a letter from the current owner of the stolen Death Note, which he learned by Misa looking at the faces of mafia members until she found one without a lifespan, with the address of Mello's location, through manipulating him using the Death Note. As Light burns the letter with the address, Saito sees the address and goes to find the current owner in Los Angeles. Saito arrives in the mafia hideout and has the current owner touch the Death Note in order to see him. The frightened mafia member instructs the others to touch the Death Note as well, and they all see Saito. Saito explains to them that the last two rules of the Death Note are in fact fake, and Mello wonders if the Death Note originally belonged to Kira. Mello also tells Saito to guard their facility. Meanwhile, Light tells Ryuk he will give up ownership of his Death Note and will borrow Misa's in order to keep his memories. Light then begins to explain his plan to Misa. The next day, the investigation team receives a call from the distorted voice of Misa claiming to be Kira. Kira tells them that he will be giving them his Death Note soon, and that they'll only need to see a person's face in order to know their name. Kira also tells them that most of the members of Mello's Mafia will die at 11:59 p.m. on November 10th, and that this will be their best chance of retrieving the stolen Death Note. After receiving their second Death Note, the investigation team decides to go through with Kira's plan. Soichiro decides that he will make the deal with Ryuk for Shinigami Eyes because he was responsible for giving away their first Death Note to Mello. On November 10th, the investigation team storms Mello's facility immediately after most of his members are killed. Ryuk is there to keep Saito from interfering, and the team members successfully retrieve the Death Note. But Light, still at their headquarters, tells them to find Mello. Once discovered by Soichiro, Mello sets off an explosive, destroying the entrances. Mello then threatens Soichiro with a gun and tells him he can set off another explosive that will destroy the entire building. Soichiro, who is currently looking in Mello's face, reads Mello's true name out loud, Mihail Keel. Your real name is Mihail Keel. Mello, who is surprised that Soichiro knows this much, is then threatened by Soichiro that his name will be written in the recently recaptured Death Note. Light is angered by the fact that his father does not kill him as soon as he finds out his real name. However, Jose shoots Soichiro with a submachine gun. Soichiro falls over and holds onto the Death Note tightly. While Mello and Jose try and take the Death Note away, other members from the investigation team arrive. Jose is shot dead, and Mello then detonates another blast, therefore ensuring his escape and injuring the investigation team members. Afterward, Soichiro is taken to a hospital. Soichiro tells Light that he knows he cannot be Kira because he can see Light's lifespan. Because Soichiro is the only member of the investigation team who knows what Mello looks like, Light urges his father to kill Mello before he dies. Soichiro dies before he can do this. Later that night, Light returns the Death Note that once belonged to him back to Saito, noting that while it would be useful to have two, he only needs one and Saito flies away. Nier playing with toys at the SBK headquarters. Nier tells Anthony Rester he believes that the Japanese task force is aiding Kira, and that he believes that the second L is Kira himself. Meanwhile, the investigation team watches the latest broadcast from Sakura TV, called Kira's Kingdom. The host of the show is Hitoshi Demegawa, who talks about how crime is decreasing and life is improving as a result of Kira's judgment. The team looks at the program in disgust. Matsuda reminds them about a worldwide speech that the President of the United States is about to give, and they begin to watch the speech. With the exception of Light, the team is shocked to learn that America is declaring its neutrality with respect to Kira. Afterward, Matsuda begins to wonder if Kira is truly evil or not. Light agrees that it is a matter of perspective, but that their job is simply to catch Kira. Meanwhile, Nier is disgusted by the President's decision. In the next scene, SBK agent Hallie Lidner is assaulted by an unknown assailant in her home. The attacker turns out to be Mello, deeply scarred from the explosion. He gains entrance to Nier's headquarters using Lidner as a hostage, and he seems tempted to kill Nier with a gun. However, he says he only wants the picture Nier has of him so that he will remain safe from Kira. In return, Mello tells Nier about the existence of Shinigami and tells him that some of the Death Note's rules are fake. With this new piece of information, Nier begins to contemplate which rule is fake. Eventually, he decides that it is most likely the 13-day rule. He contacts Light and questions him on this new theory. Nier then tells Light that he wants to test the 13-day rule to see if it is fake or not by writing down Mello's name. Light asks the investigation team for their opinions, and they all agree that the rule should not be tested, although Matsuda initially shows eagerness to avenge Soichiro. Light now realizes that the investigation team is beginning to wonder whether or not he is Kira. To top it off, Nier tells the team to call him if the second L was ever suspected of being Kira. Later, he overhears Ide telling Aizawa that he would rather work for him than for Light. Aizawa then tells Ai that he plans to visit Nier sometime soon. In response to Nier's actions, Light contacts the President of the United States and threatens to kill him if he does not cooperate. Light tells him that he wants any information on the whereabouts of SBK members. Meanwhile, Damegawa arrives in New York as Kira's messenger to increase his audience. He then gives a major worldwide broadcast of the newly found SBK headquarters, saying that they are an evil organization looking to overthrow Kira. An angry mob then tries to break into the building, while Misa watches the mob via television, prepared to kill Nier as he exits the building. Light, as L, then takes over all of Nier's computer screens and informs him that it must be Mello's doing, with Nier incensed that Light is lying through his teeth. Light then muses to himself that he has won.